This is a trip report for a trip to the Dargo High Plains and beyond on the Cup weekend in November this year. Most of us gathered the night before in Hayfield, where we had a meal at the pub and stayed at the local sports ground. The trip got off to a bit of a rocky start the next morning when Phil and Sarah's water pump failed and they had to pull out. The 8 remaining vehicles gathered in Dargo, where we had a quick trip briefing and then we're off, past Grant, down the Bulltown Spur and into the Crooked River. Then we had a fantastic afternoon along the Crooked River, including its more than 25 river crossings, until we ended up at Talbotville, and a beautiful campsite down there where we settled in for the night. Around the campfire we started having a chat about Harry's brake issues, which we soon discovered were caused by a collapsed bearing necessitating a replacement. Harry proceeded to fix his wheel bearing, of course with plenty of advice from those around him. The next morning started out beautifully with a herd of cows waking us up. With the return of Phil and Sarah in a spare car, we were 9 again, and we headed off along Brewery Track, up through the mist, through the beautiful forest there, until we got to the Basalt North Track, where we had a morning tea, and then headed north and onto the Blue Rag Range track, which was a beautiful drive. It was very busy that day. As we headed up to the top, we had at least 3 or 4 convoys that we had to contend with coming in the opposite direction, but by the time we got up to the very top, we were on our own, which was fantastic. So we all, of course, lined up across the top and took in the magnificent scenery around there, and then we were off again, back down the Blue Rag Range. As you can see in this shot, quite spectacular, with some fairly substantial dropaways on either side of the track as you head back down towards the High Plains Road. Once we got down onto the High Plains Road, it was a fairly fast pace along the beautifully renewed surface of the Dargo High Plains Road that's been done over the last couple of years. And we headed for some lunch at the Lanky Plains Hut, which was very relaxing. We then proceeded down towards heading towards Dargo. Thought we'd take a bit of a shortcut. What we soon discovered is that shortcut was pretty overgrown track. I braved it and just kept on going, and got to the other end and radioed back and said, come on through. The whole way thinking, what happens if I encounter a fallen tree or something like that? It was going to be a horrendous reverse up for what would have been a couple of Ks. But anyway, we got through to the other end. A little bit of an adventure, a couple of scratches and certainly a lot of branches that we brought along with us. Half the convoy actually went around that track and met us again on the track, and we then headed off down towards our campsite on the Upper Dargo Road. Some beautiful sets of campsites down there. This is Ollie's Jump Up, strange name, but a beautiful site, fairly busy, being a long weekend after a lot of the high plains that opened back up again. So very busy, but very pleasant and relaxing. The next day we're off again. This time we headed back west towards Dargo and the McDonald's Gap track back towards Moroka. It was here that we lost 2 vehicles. We lost Annie with a windscreen issue, and we lost Mitch here in this shot with a problem with his airbags. Both of them decided to exit the convoy, and we carried on up and over McDonald's Gap track, and then down into this beautiful creek valley parallel to the Marathon Road, where we stopped for a beautiful lunch. That afternoon, the balance of the convoy made their way all the way across over Mount Angus towards Huggett's Crossing, which is in this shot here, which was our final stop for the night. We had a very pleasant evening recounting our trip, and then the next morning saying goodbye and heading off, looking forward to the next adventure.